Ladies and gentlemen, we SealTwisted.
Hey guys, it's Pojo here and welcome to the video. So today we're going to be focusing on showing off some ways that you can maximize your Paladin when it comes to the off-tank position. I do think the Paladin's actually pretty good in the off-tank role, traditionally in Classic and now in TBC, utilizing the Seal Twist. In regular TBC, when Paladin wasn't really doing this, we did struggle a lot. All of the tanks struggled a lot when it came to being in the off-tank position because you were deprived of one of our most fundamental sources of threat and or rage, which was being hit by the target. The attention was given to the main tank. So in TBC, a lot of these bosses were given things like hateful strikes, like you would see in Patchwork, where both tanks needed to be the highest on the threat meter, and the second tank was really just getting the scraps when it came to just attention and rage, and they had to make the most of it in order to stay above all of our DPS and hunters and warlocks and classes that are pushing the meter very, very hard. In this video, I actually want to show you guys some of the insight to the stuff that I've been doing that will help you guys hopefully in your raid encounters, your boss encounters, in situations where due to gear, circumstance, maybe you have another paladin, things like that, where you just aren't going to be able to be the main focus of the fight, or you could actually volunteer to not be the focus of the fight and make your raid far better for it, maximizing some of these tips. So as we're going to jump right into it, guys, what I'm going to be covering in this video is going to primarily be seal twisting, what it is, how to maximize it, the priority rotation and how to take advantage of that, and then how to maximize and get the most out of these tools, as well as the benefits that we as paladins can specifically take advantage of to benefit our raid. And then I'm going to finish it out with a boss example of this stuff being put together and showing you guys in a proper fight. So let's establish a baseline first of our tool set so that we can then start adding more complex things on top so that we can then figure out how to get the most out of our character. So the first thing up that we're going to be doing that stems through a lot of these strategies is going to be utilizing the Seal Twist. The Seal Twist is going to require us to use Seal of Righteousness and Seal of Command. Some of these tips will not cross over with things that you can do using Seal of Command and Seal of Blood. So what is Seal Twisting? Seal Twisting is when you utilize your seals to overlap over the same auto attack to then get the benefits of both of these seals, and in some cases get additional benefit due to them being overlapped. So how do we do this? Specific seals, when replaced, will persist for 0.4 seconds after being utilized. These seals would be Seal of Righteousness and Seal of Command. These would be applicable to what is called a two-way twist, meaning that you can begin or initiate a twist with either seal active when you begin this maneuver. So I could start with Seal of Command, I could then activate Seal of Righteousness, and for 0.4 seconds, Seal of Command will continue to persist. This is called the twist window. This window of 0.4 seconds is when I can land an auto attack and I will still benefit from both seals. Keep in mind that because this is a two-way twist, we don't always have to initiate with Seal of Command. Seal of Righteousness, if we begin our twist, will also remain on our character for 0.4 seconds if we activate Seal of Command or any other seal. And this allows us to constantly switch back and forth between our seals per auto attack to both maximize our uptime, maximize our threat value, and create the smallest windows that we then can make this operational. If you're familiar with seal twisting, I'm sure now you're wondering, for Prot Paladin, why are we using Seal of Command? There are a few benefits that Seal of Command can offer that no other seal has the potential of doing. Seal of Command functions very similarly like a sword specialization proc or a Hand of Justice proc, where you are getting an additional swing on a % chance to activate. This chance is heavily tied to our weapon speed. The slower the weapon, the higher chance it will activate. For paladins, ideally we would use a slow weapon if we're utilizing the benefits of SealTwisting. For example, if you are in phase 1 of TBC, the Gavel of Unearthed Secrets, which is the Exalted Hammer from the lower city reputation, is perfect for this weapon as it has a slow speed and spell power. So again, how does Seal of Command kind of fit into this? Well, Seal of Command, with our different weapon speeds, while it does have a fixed chance to activate, other outside factors can actually increase this. For example, the Reckoning talent, when active, will give us an additional swing. That swing can also activate Seal of Command. Keep in mind though, Seal of Command can only activate one time in a block of an auto attack, meaning that if you strike the target and you get a Reckoning proc, you get a Windfury proc, you get a Hand of Justice proc, and you get another swing just for fun, out of all of those different dice rolls, they're all rolling to activate Seal of Command that one time. You cannot get 2 or more hits out of Seal of Command in one auto attack. So why is this useful? Seal of Command, when it activates, will actually give your additional seal, the one that you've twisted with, an additional hit when activated because it counts as a melee swing. This means that when you twist Seal of Command with Blood, Righteousness, Seal of Vengeance, or any other offensive seal, you will actually get an additional benefit and value out of it, and you can actually boost your primary seal by utilizing Seal of Command. Seal of Command is a very powerful modifier that we can use for our character. It is very mana efficient because when we are not judging the seal, we can actually use rank 1, which is a very, very cheap option when it comes to SealTwisting. Additionally, Seal of Command is capable to crit, which most of your offensive seals cannot do other than Seal of Blood. So, because this is a melee crit spell, that means that you will actually get double damage when you are able to get a critical success for this ability. So that means that not only do you get an additional hit of your favorite modifier, but it can also pack a punch itself when it comes to acquiring threat very quickly. And this helps play into how bursty this modifier can be. So on the screen, I'm going to show you guys a chart that is just kind of the general interactions when it comes to Seal of Command, its chance to activate relative to weapon speed, but also how that can then increase due to the other outside factors such as Windfury or Reckoning. In the white, we have our base weapon values, which are not very high. You can see that even when we use the slowest weapons in the game, we were just a little shy from getting 50%, which is just a coin flip in order to get this seal to activate. And with us using weapons that are in the faster bracket of 2.9 and up, the best that we can get is a 34.22%, which is still a 1 in 3 chance. And obviously you need threat immediately. So that's where Reckoning and Windfury start to come in as benefits, because once Reckoning, which is our additional hit, every time we are struck, we have a 10% chance to then generate 4 additional hits for the duration of 10 seconds. And this, as you can see, will then start to skyrocket this chance of our weapons to activate, and it will even start to exceed the slowest weapons in the game of 4.0 speed at 47%, and then we'll start to overtake it even with a 2.4 speed weapon. This is where Seal of Command really starts to take off and become a very consistent performer, especially when it comes to needing threat on a target very quickly. So on top of this, we also have Windfury, and this is where things start to get very, very nerdy and very, very probability intensive. So I don't show it on this chart only because there are additional modifiers that are going on. Maybe you don't run the Reckoning talent. Maybe you just can't get Reckoning to activate. And so I didn't want to show all of these benefits in the best case scenario and just kind of show you the probabilities of these kind of in a vacuum. So if you have Reckoning Windfury active, you'll see that it'll start to increase our probabilities even higher, because Windfury has a 20% chance when you strike a target in order to give you an additional hit on that target. Now, this is where we start to get a little nerdy. Seal of Command, because it counts as a weapon swing, can activate Windfury. Now, here's where it starts to get crazy. Windfury can activate Seal of Command, but probably not in the way you thought. These effects can actually activate each other retroactively. So previously we stated that you can only get one hit of Seal of Command in an auto attack block, and this is true. However, if you're unlucky and you can't get Seal of Command to activate in any of your prior dice rolls, due to the benefits and interaction of Seal of Command and Windfury, you can still they can activate each other and secure that successful dice roll that you probably otherwise wouldn't have had due to just probability. So this means that if I'm fighting a target, I've hit the target and I get Seal of Command to activate. I have Windfury active, but I didn't succeed the 20% dice roll. Now, Seal of Command has hit the target, but Seal of Command has now activated Windfury for me because it succeeded its 20% dice roll chance. And now I've got an additional hit out of my Windfury that I otherwise wouldn't have had because I did not succeed on my initial auto attack, and vice versa. I can strike the target, I can have Windfury go off, and then the additional hit that I then generate can then have the Seal of Command activate for me, securing that one hit per block. So next, we're going to start looking at the priority rotation. Now, this is where Paladin starts to get a lot more complicated if you start involving the twist, because all of our abilities are going to be tied to the global cooldown, which is 1.5 seconds, meaning that we now have a bunch of buttons that we want to press at the same time, but we can only get one out, even though they're all good buttons to press. So we then start having to make a priority rotation list in our minds, kind of dynamically depending on what's going on and what abilities are available coming off cooldown, on cooldown, or just what's even available to you, right? So single target in AoE, it's going to vary, but first let's start out with single target as it's a bit more complicated, and then we can jump into the AoE, which is going to be a lot more simple. So now that we understand what a seal twist is, how does it fit into the rotation? Well, the seal twist for single target is going to share its priority with Holy Shield, meaning they are both equally as important, but what's going to decide whether or not you press one over the other will be, what is your, what are you currently tanking? What buffs do you have active? But more primarily, do you have coverage for your character to prevent being crushed or crit? If that is the case, Holy Shield's priority will fall, and then we will want to then prioritize our seal twist. If our seal twist is unavailable, if the target is out of our range, if the target is, among all these other factors, if Holy Shield is available or we need to have our block active, Holy Shield will be our most important button to press. This is how they share, because if you need threat, seal twisting's better. If you need to defend yourself, obviously you need to press Holy Shield, because getting crit and crushed can be detrimental to your raid. Once you kind of start fighting between those two titans for their priority, we start to open up towards our other abilities. Exorcism is always a fantastic button press if you are fighting a demon or undead, because it is a very large burst of holy damage that will give you immediate threat on the meter. This has a long cooldown, meaning that we then start to look towards Consecrate, which is going to be passive threat that's generated over 8 seconds. It's subject to spell hit the same as Exorcism, but you get a lot more dice rolls, meaning that some of these hits will be missed depending on your spell hit. But because it takes a full 8 seconds in order to get the full value out of Consecrate, its priority may be lower on the totem pole simply because you will need the uptime or the mob not to move out of the Consecrate to get the maximum value. And then lastly, we have our Judgement. Judgement on its own, you will have to throw our active seal, which then will prompt you to then have to reapply a seal, meaning that we typically don't want to judge outside of a seal twist or in a situation where we need range threat, which then will bump it up on the priority, as a moving target will have less of a priority when it comes to Consecrate because you need them to stand in it. However, Exorcism as an instant cast with 30-yard range then would be a more preferred ability. So now we're starting to get into some complex territory, because what do I mean exactly by you want to judge when you seal twist, don't you need both seals active in order to perform a seal twist? Well, this is where a skill called a Pro Judge comes into play, which works a little different from TBC, which I will then explain. But the core principle of this skill is a specific timing within the seal twist window of 0.4 seconds, where we will delay the seal twist closer to 0.2 or 0.1 seconds. This will allow the seal that we have active to overlap after the auto attack has occurred, allowing us to then judge and ideally judge the seal that we began the twist with and leave us with our new activated seal, saving us the global of having to reapply. Now, the way this works differently in TBC is that it is, instead of guaranteed, where in Vanilla Classic, Judgement would prioritize the seal that had the least amount of time remaining on it, meaning that we very consistently, every single time, could throw away our seal that we've just twisted out of. In TBC, it is now randomized, so it is now a 50% chance to maintain the seal that you have twisted out of. So there will be some RNG involved with our priority list of, do we need to reapply a seal? But if we don't need to reapply a seal and the Pro Judge was successful, now we can use one of our other filler spells in its place. This potentially could be Holy Shield if it's coming off of cooldown. We could throw Exorcism for additional threat. We could refresh our Consecrate if that is available to us. It then starts to open up additional options as we start to master the Pro Twist, as well as the RNG factors of it being successful or not. Now, I understand I'm throwing a lot at you, and it does take a lot of practice, and you can also see more of just the core functions of how it works in some of the shorts that I actually have on my channel. Now, when it comes to the AoE priority, this is where things start to get a lot more simplified and closer to kind of what we understand. So now, instead of the seal twist having the highest priority, it's going to be our Consecrate that rises significantly instead, because now when it comes to adding spread threat among multiple targets, Consecrate can strike every target available, generating very high threat. Additionally, Holy Shield will still be at the same level of priority because Holy Shield has a defensive component that comes with it, as well as its own AoE threat, because every time that you block, you will then deal reflect damage back to those targets, generating you additional threat. Holy Shield in single target will not be a large chunk of your generated threat. However, in AoE, Holy Shield can easily be accounted for 20 to 24% of your threat, depending on the type of AoE encounter you are a part of. Because Holy Shield and Consecrate both have cooldowns, you then open yourself up to being able to use filler spells in between. This is where the seal twist will then find itself on the priority list, because you can then, similarly to a warrior who will use Sunder Armor, Shield Slam, and Revenge on multiple targets and tab through in order to spread its threat profile out, we do the same very similarly with the seal twist. However, our seal twist will actually generate a minor amount of AoE threat as well. The way that this happens, I'll actually put a chart on screen so you guys can see. This happens because whenever you activate a seal, it generates holy damage, it generates holy threat equal to the level at which you've learned the skill. Meaning that when you use a max rank seal of command, for example, you will generate 70 holy threat. But because we have Righteous Fury, this will then scale by 90%, giving us almost double the threat value of what that would provide, giving us almost 140 threat when we activate Seal of Command, whenever we activate Seal of Righteousness. And so this threat that we generate will then spread out amongst the targets. It's not very high threat, and it's a lot more potent in single target, but it is still invisible threat that is generated on the meter due to seal twisting. Followed by the seal twist will then be our instant casts like Exorcism, if one of the targets are undead and we need threat on that target, or Judgement, which again, ideally will want to be used in a pro-twisted fashion with our seal twists. And this is why Judgement by itself is low on the priority, because not only do we use the ability, but we then have to reseal and spend 1.5 seconds, whereas we could roll the dice to then generate an additional global to use a filler instead. So now that we've got the priority rotation, why we use the seals that we use, and how to seal twist out of the way, now the question becomes, well, this is a lot of buttons to press. A lot of it's tied to the global cooldown. How do I get more out of this other than just getting better gear? And that's where a couple of factors are going to come into our rotation that are dynamically going to give us opportunities to maximize our characters further. And the way that we can do this is in a variety of ways, specifically utilizing spell haste, which will reduce the time that our global cooldown takes. So instead of 1.5 seconds, we can reduce that down to speed such as 1.2. And just to be clear, this isn't me referring to Bloodlust, because Bloodlust will increase your weapon swing speed by 30% as well as our global cooldown by 30%, meaning that they're going to stay relatively the same in terms of how big of a window you have to utilize those twists, globals, and use other abilities. The reason I mention spell haste specifically is because it will speed up our global cooldown, because the majority of our abilities are considered spells, including our seals, but it will not speed up our already quick, giving us a larger window in order to land filler globals and be able to get seal twists off depending on what's going on in the encounter. So where can we get spell haste from? Well, I've been using a meta gem called the Mystical Skyfire, which anytime that you utilize a spell, it has a 15% chance, which is pretty high, to increase your spell haste by 4 seconds, which is about 20% of an increase. So my global goes from 1.5 to 1.2, giving me 0.6 more seconds in my swing window, depending on where it aligns, in order to get seal twist off, in order to get a block up and still be able to land a seal twist in the same weapon swing, just a variety of different things, or even just squeezing out my rotation faster in the opener of a fight. So for example, I can start a fight, I can get a holy shield out, this will proc the ability, my global will then speed up, and that allows me to get my consecrate out 0.3 seconds faster than I otherwise would be able to, leading me to being able to get more fillers out, because that global will also be sped up by 0.3 seconds. So I'm able to benefit from just getting my spells and abilities out faster, as I have a lot of globals to churn through. Using the meta gem instead of the 18 stamina and stun resist meta gem means that dynamically I will be getting more opportunities to skip my rotation out faster and generate more threat overall, because I can press my button sooner. Bit of a personal preference and trade-off, but if you are utilizing the seal twisting, I highly recommend that you would take that minor health dip in order to increase your versatility in your threat output. The next method to maximize our rotation or globals would be, I guess this one would be a bit of a two-parter, but the big thing would be Redoubt, utilizing Redoubt. Redoubt, whenever you take physical damage, have a 10% chance to activate 5 blocks for yourself at a percentage that is going to be equal to pressing Holy Shield. In single target, Holy Shield is not a significant portion of our threat, especially if you're seal twisting when it comes to just single target. This means that we can actually benefit more from our threat by utilizing other higher threat filler globals, such as Exorcism, such as reactivating Consecrate, such as getting a seal twist and pro judge off, or, potentially just overlapping Holy Shield in if you just have a free global and everything's on cooldown. But this gives us a lot more versatility in what we have going on, especially if you get a Reckoning proc while you have Redoubt up. Now your blocking is taken care of, and now you can focus on maximizing your seal twists with Redoubt while you have that very high uptime and proc chance for Seal of Command. This doesn't mean that during Redoubt you should not pay attention to what is going on. For example, Redoubt has 5 blocks. If the 10-second duration is expiring, or if you're running out of blocks, be sure to press Holy Shield to overlap before you run out of those blocks so that you have full coverage no matter what. And the last thing that we've actually talked about already, but I'll mention it again, is going to be the Pro Judge. Pro Judging in TBC has gone from a guaranteed in Classic to now it is a 50-50 coin flip. So by Pro Judging, you can, on a 50% chance, save a global every time that you judge, and that allows you to use another filler, whether that filler be blocking, whether that filler be Consecrate, Exorcism, another Seal Twist if you are Parry hasted, or things of that nature. You get free global, you save mana. Really can't argue there. And of course, Parry. When you are main tanking and you are getting punched in the face by the mob, you have a X amount % chance in order to speed up your next swing by 40%. And depending on how the stars align, your GCDs, if you have your haste meta gem going, if you have all these different factors going on, it may propel you to be able to get more threat and twist out sooner just due to the dynamic nature of speeding up your swing. Now, I've talked a lot about just general concepts of how Prot Paladin works when it comes to seal twisting, but of course this video is labeled about off tanking and how does Prot Paladin fit into off tanking, which traditionally in TBC was their absolute weakest suit to be a part of, which was the same for every other tank except for bears, who just seem to do a very great job when it comes to pushing out threat and damage. Paladins have a unique advantage in that we are mana based. What this means is that we have a front loaded pool of resource compared to warriors and druids, who in unique situations can start a fight with 100 rage, but if they're going in cold at 0 rage, they're going to significantly struggle because they can't use any of their abilities in order to stay in the fight. Paladin, due to our mana bar, is very front loaded, meaning that we can use all of our abilities at their maximum potential until we run out of mana. This is where our benefit to establish ourselves as off tanks is actually shines, because we won't stall out even if we don't have the main attention of the boss. Eventually we may, but this is where considering to use a mana potion, a dark rune, or other means of mana replenishment become factors, because I don't need to use an armor potion for a boss if I'm only getting hit once every 8 seconds, whereas I could use that mana potion, which will actually generate me threat equal to half of the mana restored. Same with the dark rune. And using spells that are very expensive like Consecrate, especially in our openers, can also increase the time that we can then use that mana potion and get that burst of threat on top of trying to climb. So by us being mana based, we actually do make really good off tanks utilizing the seal twist, because we won't stall out within the first 20 seconds of the fight if we don't get sufficient rage. So I know this all sounds cool and you're probably very skeptical, especially if you have already experienced trying to off tank in TBC without seal twisting. You've been just very unsuccessful, and your melee just kind of left you in the dust as you fought to try and stay on the threat meter. The benefits of, so I have a boss example. This is going to be for Curator, where I'm going to be showing you guys just the role of Paladin as an off tank and just how you can thrive. Next week, because I don't have any footage of Gruul, which was my ideal boss to show this for, that actually inspired this video, I will probably be uploading that at a later time with me in the off tank position, and just showing how well Paladin can actually stay at number 2 threat. Let's jump into it and we can see kind of the rotation at play here as well. Okay, so here we are with Curator. You can see that we started this fight. I was still trying to replenish my mana, unfortunately, so I didn't get to start with a fresh seal. My mana taps were expiring and I didn't get to shift out my gear, but that's okay. So here I'm going to be off tanking for Curator. So as the fight's going to start, I want you guys to mostly see how potent Paladin is as an off tank option. So the fight's going to start here soon. I have it going at half speed, that way you guys can see too. So my tank starts running in, that then prompts me to stand up. And notice that I'm not blocking immediately. And the reason that is because Curator and Gruul, while they both have hateful strikes, are not going to immediately throw them out. you do have a few seconds of grace until that happens, meaning that it's best to take the most advantage of the available globals that you have depending on the situation. Now, if you're running into the boss and you're ready and have a fresh seal prepared to go and your seal's not expiring, then absolutely you can throw in Holy Shield just to cover yourself before you make it to the boss, because you have no other threat abilities to generate. So here you'll see the warrior had a couple of seconds of uptime, but because he had to start out the fight cold, he wasn't able to generate a ton of threat. Me just throwing a Judgement and getting a critical success on that, that's an instant 2,000 threat that I have now generated. And you're going to see I actually snapped the boss back unintentionally. This is why I don't recommend that you use wings in your opener, because you need to throttle and see where your main tank is. Otherwise, you're going to overtake them. So here I start getting some twist, and for Curator, he has these sparks that spawn. So what I'm going to do is, as the off tank, ideally you want to take the attention of the sparks and keep them underneath the boss, because melee classes either benefit from being shocked by them and taking damage and generating more rage, or they have more innate tools to passively cleave them down. This is going to be a rogue's blade flurry. This is going to be warrior's cleave abilities. They generate very good cleave damage. On top of this, rogues, for example, have more tools to mitigate these magic damage, or just have defensive wall abilities to take less damage. Enhancement Shaman's going to have shamanistic rage. Rogues are going to have Cloak of Shadows. Different tools like this that then help mitigate for your healers. So keeping these flares in melee range is ideal. So the way that I'm going to do that is that I'm going to line up my Seal Twist for these adds whenever they spawn. So here I had a twist that was just ready and I was about to let it go into the boss. But instead of doing so, I then stopped my swing by looking at the spark, and also number one, my stop attack macro. So then I walk up to the spark, and once I'm in range, I then twist on it and throw my Judgment, attempting to pro twist, so that I now have sufficient threat. Now I've gotten a proc of Reckoning. I now have sufficient threat on the spark, and he's not going to run into the ranged and give them pushback. And then now I'm just finish it off because I have Reckoning, and now I can use that Reckoning to then maintain my spot as second on the threat meter. So the druid overtook me, but due to that seal twist, I'll then jump up, and now I'm ahead of him, and now I have place. So now another spark is coming, my weapon swing's coming up, and I'm gonna seal twist into it. It's successful, so now I go back to the boss so I can stay in range of the hatefuls. I know that I'm number one threat. The mob just spawned, so it took a second. So now it comes back into melee range, where the melee can now have better uptime on the boss because I have the spark in range. So now I just continue to seal twist, and I use rank 1 Holy Shield. Keep that in mind. You want to use rank 1 Holy Shield when you're off tanking, because you're only going to be hit once roughly every 8 to 12 seconds ish. So you want to keep the block uptime, but you don't want to crazy prioritize it, especially if you know that the hateful's not going to be coming your way yet. So use rank 1 Holy Shield because you want the block to get the mitigation. You don't want to be hit clean, but you don't want to dump all of your mana by spending like hundreds of mana on high rank Holy Shield for very minimal damage here. So staying behind the boss so that I'm not getting parried or speeding up the boss attacks for my main tank here, and so that if the sparks spawn, I kind of play like a bit of a goalie where I can then get to them a lot sooner. So then we hit play, another spark spawns, I'm ready for it, I get a seal twist, I pro judge into it, I keep that seal, and now I'm back on the boss to continue my seal twists. I know that I've generated a ton of threat on the spark. I don't need to hit it anymore because of my holy threat generation. And now I've just missed 2 auto attacks, unfortunately, so I need to kind of catch up here. And this might be a good situation, depending on what you're doing, to activate your wings. You don't want to use your wings outright in the opener because you run a really high chance of overtaking your main tank. But once you start to fall behind on threat, or once they're established and you need that boost, then you can activate your wings, so that you can then get a very strong lead over your melee or your ranged or whoever you need to generate appropriate threat for. Here, I didn't really feel like I needed it too much. So again, I'm focusing on the sparks. I now see that I'm starting to fall behind with my range here. So I should be activating my wings here soon. There's my wings. and now I'm starting to get a 20% burst. I did let that spark go because I noticed that my threat was low here, so I needed to let the spark go. The melee had to take care of it. I just didn't get the twist that I needed, but it's more important to obviously stay ahead so that other people aren't eating the hatefuls, for example. So this is kind of another place where you're going to have to make those judgment calls depending on the encounter. So here I have wings going. There's a new spark. So then I hit and judge the spark, and now I go back to trying to prioritize on the boss here. And here I have my meta gem active, which you can see. So now my judgments and my GCD is actually even sped up here. And then there I ate a hateful. You can see that I have a rank 1 holy shield on myself. And then this spark is getting away from me. So I decided to then continue to maintain my threat so that my main tank isn't eating the hateful, because I'm now out of melee range of the boss here. Now that I have a bit of a threat lead with my seal twists, I then chase this guy down as I messed up my seal twist attempt. I didn't get the auto attack out, so now I'm trying to keep it off of the healers. The spark and then dies. I get the seal twist out late. And then curator's at 50% here. So we're going to speed it back up to normal speed now that you can kind of see the mentality here of what's going on. So now we're moving back through at normal speed here. I'm hitting on the boss. And now at this point, it's just going to be a tank and spank because he's going to be evocating and doing his thing. But this is just more of what I'm trying to show, is just how potent the Paladin can be in the off-tank position. I'm doing okay on threat. I didn't need to activate a mana potion until I got into execute range, which would have generated me more threat as well. I was just trying to be conservative with my consumables. But this is something that you can utilize on Gruul that will actually help you be able to off tank, especially if you don't have the best gear, because you can wear more threat pieces in order to be more competitive. If you're still very squishy with your avoidance set and it's got mostly block in it or whatever the situation may be. So now I'm gonna let it go. You guys can watch it again in full speed and kind of see the way that I'm making these decisions in real time. But hopefully you've learned something. Hopefully this helps. And again, Paladin makes a really good off tank, especially if you're good with the seal twists. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching and enjoy. Any questions, concerns that you have in the comments, leave them down. I'll absolutely help answering them as much as I can. But again, enjoy, guys. Thank you so much.
4, 3.
The menagerie is for guests only.